With practice and qualifying in the books, Brian and I get you set for the Ally 400 as NASCAR is invaded Nash Vegas. We'll talk about the DraftKings targets you need, the ones to avoid, and look at how the outright market has moved because we got some movement, baby. All of that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, practice is in the books. Your Scott Fishbowl draft is off to the races. The NHL draft is going on at the Sphere while you're in Las Vegas. Man, it's a heck of a weekend to be out there.
Oh yeah, dude, it's fantastic to be here. I'm cooked to a crisp, not burnt, but in terms of energy, being out in the sun this morning from about 9 o'clock until I think it was around 2 at Stadium Swim where we had our Las Vegas live draft for Scott Fishbowl 14. And of course, I did my due diligence. I was watching practice. I tweeted out a couple of pictures. They made sure to give me all the action I wanted, even at one point putting the Xfinity practice and qualifying on 2 different televisions and having Cup up there. So what more could you ask for?
That's amazing. Shouts to Circa. Might be a fun place for an end of the year NASCAR championship watch party or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, practice is in the books. Qualifying is done. The order is set. As we always do, we will run through all the drivers on DraftKings, talk about the values, the potential targets, the potential fades, where we are initially leaning. We'll build a few lineups, and then we'll hit the outright market, see where it's at. As always, we will have our newsletter out to you, aoppodcast.substack.com, completely free, enters your email inbox every race day, so make sure you are subscribed to that if you've yet to do that. You can always check those out for free too, even if you don't subscribe, just to give them see if it makes sense, see if it's helpful for you. And if you have anything you'd like to see included in there, definitely let us know. So we're always looking to make that better. And for those of you that didn't join us on our betting preview show, which you should be doing each and every week, usually on Wednesdays. It came out a little later this week, but appreciate all the patience there. We eclipsed 1,000 subs on YouTube. Can't thank you all enough. Really, 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 really appreciate it. But we are not done. We're going to keep climbing, keep crawling. So if you have yet to subscribe, you're enjoying the content, you're checking us out most weeks, really consider hitting that subscribe button. Does nothing, to cost you nothing, gets it in your feed early, and helps us out tremendously. So Brian Twining, should we take a look at the DraftKings pricing and see what we want to do?
Let's dive in. This is going to be a fun week.
Yeah. Okay, let me do that one. Okay. So we have 3 names in the 10K, and then there's a big 9K. So let's just talk 10K for a second. Kyle Larson starting 4th, 10.5. Denny Hamlin starting on the pole, 10.3. And Christopher Bell starting 3rd at 10K. 3 compelling names, obviously 2 Toyota JGR drivers, and then Kyle Larson from the Hendrick camp. All 3 drivers, you could make the case make a lot of sense, both as early dominators, as race leaders who are going to be there at the end, and then obviously have a real shot for the win. So of the pricing, we have 3 names. They're all starting the same range. Who's the most compelling for you? And I guess we can eventually rank them, but I guess how are you thinking about these 3 and diving in?
I'm gonna start with it. For me, it's got to be Denny Hamlin. I'm gonna go back to the Denny Hamlin well at DFS earlier this week on his podcast. He does Actions Detrimental. They tried to get him to once again say that he was going to win the race, but he steered clear of that by just saying he thought he was going to be very strong this week. And clearly the car looks plenty fast. I will say, you and I were chatting prior to jumping on here. Practice was a little interesting for me. I mean, obviously I didn't have audio for the first time in a while, so I was just able to watch it. So I was checking the phone, looking at lap averages and all that stuff. And one thing I noticed that it seemed that there was a lot of guys who started off a little bit slower than the rest, but they were maintaining a little bit better, while some other dudes were throwing down some extremely fast laps, but then obviously having large fall offs into the 5 and 10 lap average range. So, I don't think you can take too much away from practice in the Cup Series right now when we're only having 15, 20-minute sessions. And then obviously qualifying, we've talked about this before. Qualifying means something, but it doesn't mean everything. And at this track, yes, track position will play a major role, but some guys in the field more than others are able to manufacture decent spots, whether it be pit road decisions or getting on a different cycle, all that jargon. But Denny Hamlin, he doesn't have to worry about any of that shit. He's got a fast car. He's in the manufacturer that was probably the best here last year. And at 1.5 and similar types of tracks, they're always fast. So I like Denny in this range, 10-3. I think a lot of people are a little bit sleeping on him because Larson and Bell have been the best two guys over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah. I think honestly, like the last couple weeks has been very much like hard to pass, hard to make moves. Really, you can move a couple of spots, but driving through the field isn't possible. I feel like it's a lot more in the realm of outcomes this week.
Yeah.
I like where your head's at with Hamlin. I think he obviously makes a ton of sense. I really like Larson. If you think he can, get to the front pretty quickly, we know how impressive he's been, and Christopher Bell has just been incredible. So, I mean, I think all three of them make compelling cases, and depending on how you're building your lineup and what you want to kind of accomplish, I think you can reasonably use all three of them. I don't know if you necessarily can get to two of them in that range, but or that you really even want to, but
yeah.
I think they all make sense. Let's talk the 9K range, because I think that's where things get interesting and will kind of help guide what we do in the 10K. So Elliott starting 13th at 97, Byron starting 7th at 95, Ryan Blaney starting 18th at 93, and Ross Chastain starting 20th at 9K, or at an even 9K. So Chastain came in as a inside 10-1 bet. We'll look at the betting odds, but he's now like 20-1 or longer. Obviously the Ford camp in general between Blaney and Logano did not look good. Elliott was okay. Like, he wasn't compelling, and his number actually got a little bit longer. Byron looks good as he always does. There's some, if you want to start Larson Byron, I don't think that's crazy. I think that can make some sense. This 9K range, is there a name that stands out above the rest to you?
So it's interesting that you talked about the Penske guys, because Blaney in practice was actually the fastest when it came to like different lap averages. And, he was fast. He threw down a fast lap in practice. It just did not translate to the next session in qualifying. And the same thing could be said for Martin Truex Jr. On the other end of the conversation, how I had referenced some guys didn't unload fast, but they maintained. And that's what Truex did during practice. He had like non-existent fall off from 5, 10, and 15 lap runs. So, if we do run into a situation this weekend where it's going to be really hot, but, maybe we see some tire wear. I don't know. Practice didn't indicate that. But if anybody's going to be able to stay on the long run, and if you watch the Xfinity race, they only had one caution for cause. So if the Cup Series is similar, and these guys keep it clean on the extreme long run, I like Martin Truex Jr. as a guy that can potentially make his way through the field just on his driving style and not necessarily speed. So, I'm looking at Truex. I'm looking at Blaney. Despite track history, I think Blaney, it's a little more recency bias just because he's been fast. And then, the HMS guys, obviously, they're always strong, but I don't know. I'm not super high on either one to potentially win the race. And then Ross Chastain, I was down on coming into the week. I do think he's a lot more compelling now that he's starting 20th, though.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if he was starting near the front, maybe we'd be like, especially with the other names starting up there. But starting 20th, I think he could make a definite case, especially given what we've seen from him. And he's always somebody that we like. We prefer to bet when he struggles a little bit in qualifying, starts a little bit further back, and then works his way through the field. I think calling out Blaney and Truex was a great call on your part, as you mentioned. Just consistent. So Group A speed rankings, Blaney was second on 5 lap, but first on 10, 15, and 20. And then in Group B, Truex was third on 5 lap, but first on 10, 15, 20, and 25 laps. So throwing down consistent speed laps, I think both of them are really compelling. And if you want to, like, honestly, like, I know it's really scary to like just skip over the Bell, Hamlin, Larson group, but like you could make a reasonable case, assuming you find, as we kind of go through here,
Yep.
an early dominator that starting with like a Truex and a Blaney and a Chastain and kind of going from there could make some sense, depending on how you build out the rest of your lineup. So I don't hate that. It's probably, like I said, very scary to do that, especially given the names that are at the top. But
Yes,
I think they all.
exactly.
I think it's an interesting way to kind of get a little bit different. Let's talk 8K. We got everybody covered. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we have Tyler Reddick starting 6th. I can't wait to see how he falls apart on Sunday. Joey Logano starting 26th. Brad Keselowski starting 5th. Ty
That
Gibbs
mother effer.
starting 8th. Chris Buescher starting 9th. Kyle Busch starting 27th. Get ready for him to pull the ejector quick. And Alex Bowman starting 12th. So, I mentioned if you wanted to kind of skip the top range and go down to the 9Ks to start building your lineup, you probably have to come down here to a Keselowski, to a Gibbs, maybe a Reddick to kind of figure out a potential early dominator, or maybe even go down to, we'll talk Josh Berry here in a second. But I guess of this range, there's a lot, there's some guys starting near the front, some guys starting near the back, Bowman obviously in the middle. What do you make of this range, and who's the compelling target for you?
So I mean, when we go and we review the betting card, and if people watched the show earlier in the week, there was one number in particular that you grabbed. I didn't add it to the show card, but I actually did bet it here in Vegas, and that's got to be Ty Gibbs. Like, we all expected JGR Camp to come in here extremely fast, and there was nobody faster than this 54 team. He got the short end of the stick in qualifying because of where he was in Group A, and then the way that they do the qualifying bullshit now and whatever. I think he's definitely going to be a contender this week. I think he's going to have the long run speed. I think he's somebody to consider as a like salary saver potential dominator type pick, because I do think he could mix it up in the front. We all know he's a young kid. He's not afraid to mix it up with the veterans. So I like him. Keselowski, I really don't know what to think. He didn't do anything longer than a 5-lap run during practice. So I don't know what type of long run speed we're supposed to see here. And even when he did, like, it wasn't that fast. So, Keselowski hasn't qualified like this at a 1.5 or the high speed tracks this year. So I'm under the assumption that him and Joey Logano essentially flipped places, and Keselowski is going to be the one fading and Logano is going to be the one gaining.
So I have Brad. I'm looking at iFantasy Races speed rankings. He had him run 10 laps, and he was the 6th fastest, but he was he was number 1 on 5-lap average. Is that what you're seeing?
I know he was fast in his group for 5-lap average.
Oh, but like overall.
Yeah.
It is interesting how he kind of broke it out, because it's frustrating that, especially on a track like this where they could easily run some stuff, but like they split everybody up and then they push everybody together for qualifying, and it makes it messy. I don't know. I came in with I think there was some potential optimism with RFK boys. I don't know how I feel about him. I faded him. I faded Brad in one matchup with Ty Gibbs, which I'm very happy to be sitting with that. I'm Gibbs was somebody that I liked just because of the number. Like it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I got it at 25 at Superbook. It was long as 20. I was like, this is a guy, especially at 1.5 miles. So we're like, okay, this is usually like a 12, maybe 14. That's what we should be looking at. And sure enough, that's where we're at. So very excited to be sitting on that. We can talk about, whether we want to get invested again if we haven't at that point. But I think he makes sense. I think he makes sense as a second dominator, whether you start Bell or Hamlin, or if you want to get aggressive, use him as one of the dominators if you want to skip that top range. I want no part of Kyle Busch. He's always going to pop in the model just because where he's starting and what his potential upside is. I'm all set. I don't need that.
I was just gonna say, and then on Kyle Busch too. Like I think Busch fits into the same like basket as Joey Logano and Ross Chastain here at this track. Like all three of those guys had previously qualified really well and they've run really well here. And yet Chastain and Logano are outside the top 20 and Kyle Busch is the worst RCR car. His teammate Austin Dillon almost cracked the top 10 for gosh sake. So like, I I'm a little bit thrown off by that data. Like it almost as if last year meant nothing. And because we're on the new tire code or the new tire compound or combo, sorry, that this is the first time they're running here at Nashville, but the third time or fourth time that they've run it this season. So maybe there was some like testing going on with some of these guys, and they weren't necessarily concerned with the qualifying speed, which is, I'm praying is the exact explanation for Joey Logano's shitty qualifying effort, because I'm very heavily invested in a matchup between him and Brad Keselowski, which I hit again post qualifying despite the difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Logano's sort of interesting. I think your optimism for him makes him definitely a candidate, especially if we do anything with the Ryan Blaney stuff. We could get both them in and make a lot of sense.
I mean, I will say when I do back Joey Logano, he sucks. So maybe that was the sign.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced you don't like him, and you back him on purpose just so he has an awful race.
There's probably a part of me like
it's
unconscious.
you don't realize it, but it's like there's a little part of you like underlying, like if I do this, either I'll win money or Joey Logano will be awful, and Bowman's in an interesting spot. I'm kind of optimistic about him, but I don't know that he's like crazy. Like his ceiling is crazy high. I think he's kind of like a 5 to 10 car at best. So it's hard to get to him, even though he looks decent and is not super expensive. Let's talk 7Ks. Bubba Wallace starting 24th at 7,800 is kind of interesting. Looked pretty fast in practice. But did have some decent fall off in 10, 15, and 20 lap averages. Was pretty solid here, but given where he's starting, I could see myself finding a way to get there. Josh Berry starting on the front row. Shouts to him, 7,700. Daniel Suarez, 31st. I don't know what to make of that. Trackhouse is just
Trackhouse shit the bed, man.
Yeah, Trackhouse is. I don't know what's going on there. Briscoe starting 19th. Gragson starting 16th. Corey Heim, Austin Cindric round out the 7K range. Not super sexy, nothing like, ooh, I gotta get that in my lineup, but anything you're like gravitating towards over the rest?
I mean,
Suarez maybe?
I was just gonna say, look, if you expect Ross Chastain and Trackhouse to have done the same thing that I was just talking about with Joe Logano, they come here, they're looking for race pace. They weren't concerned with qualifying. Then I think Suarez has to be under consideration to add, especially with him starting 31st. That being said, neither of these two guys have really shown their upside at tracks really this season. And it's almost as if Trackhouse has either taken a step back or the rest of the field has caught up to the type of stuff that they were doing, which made them so intriguing at a Nashville or when they were popping at tracks that others weren't. So, I'm a little skeptical there. I like the Bubba Wallace call. Starting 24th, I think it's a good spot to get some placements. I think he's definitely somebody that could get a top 10 if they could keep the wheels on it, which is always an issue with this team, whether it be pit road or Bubba's frustrations getting to him. So, you run the risk there. But of this group, obviously Barry's starting second, but I mean, the only way he's going is backwards. So you put yourself in a box there. You have to rely on Josh Berry to, win the race essentially and lead a bunch of laps. So it's got to be Bubba. The rest of the guys, I'm not really interested in. Corey Heim did post the second fastest 5, 10, and 50, whatever the hell it was, lap averages in their group, but I'm not buying that.
Yeah, so on Bubba, he's gotten better on the mile and a half indoor high speed tracks this year. Was 24th at Vegas, but then 17th in terms of average speed, 12th at Dover, which is the one of the best comps, 17th at Kansas, and then 7th at Charlotte, which is another really important crossover for this week. So I think that is really interesting. Gragson's always been like someone I kind of fall into a mile and a half, but he's like Ryan at iFantasy Race pointed out, his like just average speed rankings have really fallen off the last month or so. So he's somebody, especially starting 16th, that's going to be hard for me to get to. I'd rather play the Daniel Suarez game, who hasn't been phenomenal on mile and a halves, but I think could, I think a top 20 is within his range of outcomes and maybe a little bit higher than that. And if, some stuff goes right and Ross figures out some stuff, maybe he's, even a little bit better than that. So I could see myself finding a way to grab some there. I don't think I want any Briscoe. I'm probably not. I don't want Heim, like even starting at 29th at 7,200. I can't do it. Especially when we talk 6K range, because we can save a few hundred, and I really don't think the bet's very much different than what we're going to be talking about with the 7K. So Michael McDowell starting 14th, Gillen 32nd, Eric Jones 34th, Allmendinger 28th, Ricky Stenhouse 23rd, Carson Hocevar and Ryan Preece round out the 6K range. Like, is there really that big of a difference between someone like Stenhouse, Allmendinger, even McGillen versus a Heim, a Gregson, a Briscoe, a Suarez? Like, I think they're negligible, and you're saving $500 to $1,000 on those drivers.
Yeah, and if there are any differences, they're so minute you can't really see them. So I would much rather save the salary and go down here, especially for somebody like Allmendinger who excels at concrete tracks.
Yep.
And he looked okay early in the run during practice, and obviously we know like Colleague has really taken a step back this year, constantly rotating drivers in the Cup Series. So I don't ever expect them to qualify well. But Dinger's a guy who they don't have anything to lose, and I think he could potentially use a well-timed caution or something of that nature to gain track position, and then potentially find himself running inside the top 15 and finish better than all these guys. And you're getting, double-digit placement points and all of that for $800 less than some of these other dudes.
Yeah. So I wanted to point out, what was I looking at? McDowell. So McDowell's been kind of up and down. So his speed ranking for like the mile and a half in Dover isn't great, but like that's mostly due to being 32nd at Vegas and 27th at Dover. But in the races where he pops and the car looks good, 7th at Texas, 15th at Kansas, 12th at Charlotte. Looks like he has some speed starting 14th. I don't hate going there at 6,900. I think where he's starting, a lot of people won't be on him. So if you think he can be pretty good, I think he makes some sense. And then Eric Jones is compelling. We usually like to get to him at high speed tracks. We liked him at Michigan. Obviously, he didn't run Dover or Kansas this year due to the injury, but I think he's been back long enough. Where he's starting, I don't think it's I don't mind getting to him, especially when we were talking about doing the same thing with like a Suarez. Like, I think you're saving the money, so it's a little less risky. You don't need him to perform as well, and he has a few more spots to kind of move forward. So I think Eric Jones 6,600 is fine.
I guess I don't buy anything that Legacy is selling right now. So I have a hard time wanting to play either him or Nemechek, regardless of where they're. I mean, look at that. They're starting 34th and 35th. I mean, how much worse can you get for a team, especially? Yes, they're the third team for a manufacturer, but it's a manufacturer that only has a total of friggin' 8 cars.
Yeah.
Eight full-time cars in the Cup Series. So you would think that these guys would be able to be on the level of, say, even a freaking Stuart Haas, which they've been bad, but they're not as bad as Legacy is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm looking at projected ownership right now. I figured Jones would be like a distant third, but he's actually his ownership is a little bit is above Stenhouse but below Allmendinger. So I was kind of, I don't know. I'm curious to see how that plays out on Sunday. I think people could be a lot more pessimistic on Jones just because he's been so garbage. But it's always interesting to get a little fact check into your kind of thoughts and biases and all that good stuff. Let's finish out the range, and then we can talk about building some lineups. So we got John Hunter starting 35th, 5,800. Austin Dillon starting 11th, 57. Justin Haley starting 33rd at 56. I feel like it's going to be very popular. He's been so good lately. LaJoy 21st, Harrison Burton, Zane Smith, Riley Herbst, Daniel Hemrick, and Chad Fincham round out the field. If we're looking to save some salary, if we're looking to round out some of these lineups, is there anything sub 6K that you're like, I could find myself getting there?
I mean, obviously, I could find myself playing Justin Haley, although he's got to go to the back of the field because something to have to do with unapproved adjustments or something where they threw out his car chief and his lap time actually didn't even matter because he's got to start in the back. So,
but he's also 33rd already, so that's fine. I can.
Yes,
it's not like
you're only exactly. Yeah, so it's not like he qualified 10th, and that's the position they're grading it from.
Yeah. LaJoy? Maybe?
No way.
No.
Starting 21st? Like, what's his ceiling?
21st.
Yeah, right? That's what I mean. Like his ceiling, he's
22nd.
pretty much reached his ceiling. Yeah, exactly. He's reached his ceiling at this point of where he's starting. So I don't think he's going anywhere. And then, I routinely like Riley Herbst, but after seeing the way that the Xfinity race went today and the fact that like his cool suit broke and the kid looked like he had been walking through the desert for a day straight, he's got to go to the infield care center for multiple bags of fluids. Like, who knows what type of shape he's going to be in tomorrow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. All right, well, let's build some lineups and figure out how gross we actually have to get. So you mentioned Hamlin was your favorite option, so let's start with him on our first lineup and go from there. Do we want to do the Ty Gibbs thing with Hamlin? Do you want to go to Reddick? Do you want to do something else? Where's your head at?
Do it. Get Gibbs. That was like my first. Okay. Yeah.
So we'll start Hamlin Gibbs and we'll see where it goes. I like the Toyota feeling, and I'm going to put in some Bubba Wallace starting 24th.
Woo.
How fun do we want to get now?
All right. I mean, I mentioned him. I like Dinger this week, so I think Allmendinger at 6,500 is a decent.
I think it's fun. I think it allows us to get some wiggle room, and it puts us in a good range too. Because we can do two guys in kind of the 8K range, which is a place where we want to be. Unless we want to get like.
Oh, that's gross, but that's also beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. Or we could go up to like we could do like a Byron thing with like.
Yeah, I'm not as high as on Byron this week. Although he qualified 7th, I just don't.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid way to finalize the lineup. So let's save that one. Let's build the second one. NASCAR. All right. So, do you want to do a Larson with like the Penske garage? Do you want to start with? Do you want to skip the 10K and see what it looks like building from the 9K? Do you want? Is there another driver?
I think we have to have some Larson.
Okay, let's start with Larson.
Yeah.
10-5. You don't really love Byron. Do you want to do any other Hendrick stuff, or do you want to just solo it with Larson and figure it out from there?
I think we're good just with Larson.
Okay. What do you think about either Blaney, Chastain?
I don't hate Blaney.
Okay.
I mean, again, like we're playing against the trends of him at this particular track, but in terms of speed, recently he's been right up there near the front. So
Stenhouse, Gilliland, Eric Jones.
I'll let you tee it off. No pressure or anything.
Okay.
Oh,
None.
like
we
that.
could do a second name down here to kind of give us a little more juice with our last two spots.
Okay, since we're on that, how do you feel about putting McDowell in here?
I like McDowell
because I think that's a good way to get off of like guys that are going to be rostered a lot while having Larson and Blaney.
Yeah, and then we can do whatever we want. So that gets us up to 83. So the other thing we can do is, depending on how aggressive we want to get, if we do like a Stenhouse, that gets us all the way up to basically, we could do Hamlin or Bell or Truex. What's if we put Truex?
I mean, that's a good,
because that gives us Truex as a potential winner, Blaney is a potential winner, Larson is a potential winner, McDowell probably more like a top 6.
I think he's a top 10 car. Like he could top 10 it, and maybe
I think,
top 5.
Yeah, I think he can flirt with a top 5. So that's why I'm willing to get to him, and that gets us to 68. So that's Eric Jones, Dinger, Stenhouse, which I like all three of these guys plenty. So I like that a lot. Do you want to do?
Right, I'll give you the leeway
hammer
to pick this one. So
I'm
it's
gonna put in Eric Jones. I know it's disgusting, and I'll probably go throw up after this, but Dinger is definitely safer. Although Stenhouse is the one with the least amount of ownership, and it leaves about 500 on the table. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'll cry when he crashes on lap like 13. All right,
we're gonna have a Stenhouse versus Kyle Busch battle again.
Oh baby, I love it.
All right, this is gross, but I talked him up all week. We got to have Logano in a lineup.
Okay, I think we do the Blaney and Logano. I'm just doing some clicking. Don't mind me.
I'm actually liking this. This is just, man.
It puts us in a gross spot, but I like the idea of. I mentioned wanting to do this.
Who is the cheapest? What is the cheapest guy? Oh, I mean, if you want to get real gross, you could just put Ty Gibbs in there, and then we could get Herbst or Zane Smith.
Fine with me. Yeah, because we need a dominator. Oh no, we can't. We can't do Ty Gibbs.
Oh, he's 40. Damn, my brain was fried past the mathing ability.
Yeah, the sun and the drinking at like 8 a.m. will. We can't do Josh Berry, right? That seems like
I'm just so concerned that that's like an immediate backwards.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. If we put Gibbs in and we take out,
maybe take out Truex.
Okay. And then what's the cheap guy, and then we'll figure it out from there. So Herbst, no, we don't want to do him.
We could do Haley. Yeah, I don't mind that.
Okay. And that gets us to 91. So that allows Reddick, Keselowski, Buescher, Kyle Busch. I mean, I think Reddick would be the. Do you like Reddick this week? I know you like him every week, but do you like him this week?
That's funny you say that, because again, we didn't really get to see him do long run in practice, but he was good here last year. And had he not had his tire fall off, he was running. I think he was like inside the top 7.
Yeah,
and he had led like over 30 laps.
And Reddick was 2nd at Vegas, 1st at Texas, 4th at Dover, 13th at Kansas, and 9th at Charlotte. But he's 3rd, right behind Hamlin and Larson in terms of speed rankings. He's He's 21st and 13th in terms of speed rankings here, so I don't love that as much. The other option is we do like a Bubba Wallace, and then we take Chastain out and go with like a Hamlin or a Bell, which I think feels a lot more fun
and safer
and more realistic.
I mean, or instead of getting Bell or Hamlin, this is where we add Truex.
Yeah, but
we just hope that then we hope that Gibbs is the earliest dominator, and then by the end of stage 1, guys like Blaney or Truex have worked their way near the front.
This feels like a lot. But Truex is number 1 here in terms of our speed rankings the last 2 years, and he's 4th in terms of on the 1.5s and Dover. I think Bell's the answer.
All right.
Unless you want to do Hamlin again, which I'm fine with.
No, because then Hamlin will probably get wrecked by Chastain at some point.
Yeah, I feel much better about that. It feels more solid, even if it doesn't quite feel as fun of a start.
I mean, it's going to be really gross when Brad Keselowski's winning and I'm crying because I'm losing all the money because he completely made me eat crow.
All right, let's look at the outright odds and talk about it as lines have shifted. So let's see what we have here. Future bet. So Hamlin is the favorite plus 350, Larson 425, Truex 7, Bell 7, and then we start talking double digits. Are you betting any of the favorites after what we've seen?
It's hard to get there. I mean, if you follow Chris Wormy, he tweeted it during practice and qualifying, like, have a good weekend, folks. I look forward to live betting or something of that nature, because that's just kind of what we were given in practice. I don't think was enough to completely determine who the entirety of the actual contenders are to win the race. So it's hard to get to anybody other than Denny and Larson, who are every single week based on track history as well, when you factor that in there. So I really like Truex. I like Blaney probably a little slightly less, but with his track history, it's hard to get there.
Yeah. Recap the card for everybody just to know where we're at. So I have Gibbs at 25-1. I have Alex Bowman at 50. Gibbs top 3, Truex over Chastain, Gibbs over Logano, Gibbs over Keselowski, and Gibbs over Gibbs top 10. So heavily invested in Ty Gibbs this week. Brian has Reddick at 11. He has Kyle Busch at 50 and Alex Bowman at 50. He has the Gibbs top 10, Truex over Chastain, Logano over Kez, Gibbs over Kez, Logano over Kez again. So double down on that post. So that lets you know kind of where we're at in terms of the card. So Brian, if we didn't really get a ton of new information, and obviously lines have moved, is there potential value grabbing some of the guys we liked pre-practice and qualifying, or do you think that's thinking too much and getting a little too aggressive? Because like Chastain's 15, I think he's even longer over at Superbook.
Yeah,
he's 20. Like, is there value there? I'm just refreshing to make sure we're getting the most up-to-date odds. Yeah, he's still 20. Logano's 25. Like, is there potential value as we kind of get into the Keselowski's 14, Reddick 16, Byron 16, Elliott 20, Chastain 20, Logano 25?
I don't hate going to like Elliott or Chastain if those are two guys that you like. I don't necessarily think Elliott is going to be a car that's up front. Like, obviously he can find his way there, and I think the set could be for Joey Logano. I wasn't like touting him as somebody I thought was going to win. I thought I was going to get a nice return on the pre-practice and qualifying number based on his history as an elite qualifier at this track with the best overall average starting position at Nashville since we've been coming here in the Cup car. But if these guys find their way up at the front because of a caution or because of pit cycling, we've seen it so many times. Clean air is king in the new car. And once you get up there, your car runs completely different. Everybody finds speed when they're in the lead. So if you were to tell me that these three guys were up front near the end of the race, battling for a win, it wouldn't surprise me,
Yeah.
So I don't mind getting there. I do think though that like a guy like Logano, who's starting a little bit further back in the field, you can kind of get a sense as to whether or not he's going to be able to do that within like the first stage or so, just to see if he's able to make some passes. So I'd wait to bet him live. Whereas like an Elliott or a Chastain, because they're starting a little bit further forward, if they start making moves, like they're immediately shooting back down to the 10-12 range.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like Reddick at 16 more than Chastain at 20?
I mean, well, yeah, that's just being biased, of course. And I think because he's in a Toyota and just the overall speed that they've shown on a more consistent basis at these high speed 1.5s and Reddick's history this season at the higher speed tracks, I would rather bet that number. And I already hit it. When they reposted numbers, I went back and I bet Reddick again for a little bit. But I do like Blaney. I think he's also a live bet guy, though. You got to see him make some passes quickly before I want to get invested in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, this little where's my mouse? There's my mouse. This little section. I think it's like Chastain and Reddick are both interesting ads at their numbers. I don't love Ty Gibbs at 12. But I think you may be able to get better in if you kind of shop around. But given that he was kind of closer to 20, it's not a bad number. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
I was just gonna say we've talked about this a couple of times, and you listen to other people's podcasts. They say it all the time. The fact that Ty Gibbs has yet to win a race, to me, it tells me that betting 12 or 10 like he was opening at earlier in the year, that number's too short. So if you're sitting on the 20 or 25 like Kyle got, then you're happy. Like there's no reason to go back to the well regardless of how fast he is, because until he can prove that he can close the deal, he is a mid-range outright bet for me. I love the placements, the ladder bets, top 3, top 5. I smashed his top 10, which was close to even money early in the week, because that's easily doable for him. But until he proves that he can run up front and finish there, I don't think you can get to this number with him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little more optimistic. Let's see, does DraftKings have odds up yet? I think he showed enough.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, so just on the previous screen, when you were looking at Caesars, if you were to tell me, or if you gave me the choice to bet Ty Gibbs at 12 or William Byron at 14, I'm going to bet William Byron.
Yeah.
He's just a better, more consistent driver at this moment. And regardless of the car that they come with, which team in the sport is better than HMS at making adjustments in race?
Nobody. You can get him at 16, and his pit crew is incredible.
Yeah, I would rather bet Byron than Gibbs at 12.
Yeah.
And I mean, full disclosure, I have zero interest in betting Byron this week, which is he'll probably be up there at the front at the end. So
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Reddick and Chastain when I can just bet Byron at 16, and HMS showed plenty of speed, and Reddick's been a winner. So Byron's been a winner, Reddick's been a bet shitter, and Ross Chastain's been out to lunch. So
yeah.
Kind of an interesting range. Okay, so are you adding any outrights to the card as we sit here?
Well, like I said, I'm gonna add the Reddick number that I bet again, because as you like to say, I am a glutton for punishment.
I love the lecture I get about suggesting Ty Gibbs at 12, and how am I doing that when I'm betting when I could bet Byron, and you're gonna bet Reddick at the same number as Byron?
Look, I'm sticking true to my word, man.
We're very much do as we say, not as we do podcast. We both do dumb things week to week.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet Chase Briscoe far too often, so take our information, weed out the garbage, and hopefully you can cash some money. We'll be here.
Yeah, and the thing about Reddick is I'm a little bit confused as to why his number dropped when he really didn't do anything to tell the books that, oh no, his car's not good. Like his lap times were okay in practice. He didn't put together a ton of segments of 5-10 lap, blah, blah, blah. He didn't really do that in practice.
My
But
guess
he
is
went
there's
out
not
in
enough
qualifying
people
and he
like
qualified
you.
inside the top 10.
Yeah, there's not enough people like you out there just dropping outrights on him. So the books are like, well, we got to take some money on this guy.
But yeah, and that's what I mean. And whereas like a guy like Keselowski, he qualified really fast and he had the luxury of being in the second group, which is normally faster than everybody else. So obviously his times are going to be inflated, although the second group was a little bit slower, ironically enough. But like, you know, I understand if this was a bet, like if they started the race in stage 3 and Keselowski was in 5th, yeah, I think Keselowski should be one of the favorites, but I don't think he should go from 25 to 14 based off of what we saw, and Reddick dropped from 10 to 16.
Let's play a game. Make it make sense. Kyle Busch is 30-1 at Caesars and 60-1 at Superbook.
Oh yeah, no.
So does that mean he's a no-go, even though you've already added him to the card, and Caesars is just giving people a short price because they've already taken too much money? Or
I think Caesars can just post whatever they want because it's one of the largest books available in the vast majority of states, and it puts people people are confined by the odds that are available to them. Essentially, that's kind of like with us when we're in California. You know, we're at the mercy of the offshores.
Yeah, Ty Gibbs is a 16 at Bet365 if you want to hop on that. By the way.
Oh, see, I like that. And okay, perfect. Bet365 has it correct. Brad Keselowski and Tyler Reddick are the same number.
Yeah. And Kyle Busch is 50, so.
Yeah, I don't think Busch is somebody that you could really consider.
No.
Maybe a small sprinkle, but
I'd much rather bet Bubba Wallace at 50 than Kyle Busch.
Okay, so that brings up the question then, if the matchup is reposted, are you going to bet Bubba over Busch again?
Oh, yeah. I'm mad I didn't bet it before. Kyle Busch is being parked in the garage, and Bubba's going to finish like 30th, and everybody's going to win.
Yeah.
All right, Brian Twining. It was good to catch up. I'm happy to see you're alive and kicking. Hopefully Vegas goes well for you tonight. I'm sure we'll be chatting throughout the week. Make sure you subscribe to the Substack, aoppodcast.substack.com for the full betting card, as well as all of our thoughts. Yeah, I'm pretty content with my card. I'm probably going to add a couple matchups and or placings when all those kind of trickle out.
Yeah.
But in terms of outrights, I think I'm just going to sit with Gibbs at 25 and Bowman at 50. I'm tempted to add a Chastain or a Byron or a Reddick, but I guess you'll have to look at the newsletter to see if I do any of the above. And obviously the favorites are really compelling, Larson or Hamlin. It's just.
But I think. I was just going to say, if you don't already have action on those guys, I think there's other markets like just top manufacturer or like top 3 that you're not, obviously you're not getting paid as much, but you're limiting your risk and you're only losing a little bit of value in terms of, these line value.
Yep. I like where your head's at. Enjoy the race. Let's cash some tickets. Let's win some money on DraftKings, and we'll be back next Wednesday to recap it all. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you know when that video goes live. For Brian Twining, live from Las Vegas, I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.